So we Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're nearly there in terms of looking at all the lessons that we have gone through before from the Bhagavad Gita. So we are on chapter 13. So today, hopefully we'll cover 13, 14, and 15. And tomorrow we wanted to do a session on chanting, japa, how to chant. We've done it before, so it'll be a little bit of revision. It's always good to revise how we chant again and again, because that is our main sadhana. That is our main spiritual practice by which we want to attain love of Godhead. So it's good to keep on every now and then, just take stock of how is our chanting going. And then the day after, on Wednesday, probably we will finish all the lessons from the Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 13 is the title of this chapter is Nature Consciousness. Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. This is the beginning of the Gyan Yoga section of the Bhagavad Gita. Gyan means knowledge. So in these 6 chapters coming up, these 6 chapters, Krishna has given a lot of detail. Gyan. It is recording now. So, how does this chapter start? Arjun asks wonderful questions. Wonderful questions. He wants to know more about Prakriti. He wants to know more about this body, the knower of the body. He wants to know about what is knowledge, what is the object of knowledge. And Krishna spends the whole chapter answering those questions. So what we learn from, there's 4 themes in this chapter. And what we learn from this chapter is, the first theme is Krishna is explaining the different constitutional parts of our body. Very important to understand this, because if we can understand a little bit about how our body works, then we may have a little advantage in trying to control our senses, our mind. So I wanted to ask the devotees, does anybody remember what are the different constitutions of our body? What are the different things that constitute our body? Anybody like to give me some items? One item, few items?
5 working senses.
Excellent. Excellent.
5
mind
knowledge.
Intelligence.
Mind intelligence.
No. Mind intelligence and senses, Prabhu.
Yes, the horses are senses and the intelligence was now mind was driver. I mean intelligence.
Good.
Like that on Arjuna's chariot, Krishna was the mind.
Good. Okay. Pitambar, you were saying something?
Yes, mind, intelligence, false ego. And would the unmanifest also be part of the body? The unmanifest, before everything gets created, must be, the unmanifest as well.
Yeah. That's the Pradhan. Yeah. Anything else? You've done well. In terms of senses, let's identify what are the different types of senses. Do you remember what types of senses? We had the working senses.
Nose.
Yeah, that's
mouth.
right.
Sorry, tongue. Skin.
Yeah.
Hearing.
Hands and legs. That's the working senses.
Oh yeah, they're the work. Sorry, the other ones are knowledge. Apologies. Yes.
Knowledge acquiring. Yes. So what are those ones? Knowledge acquiring senses.
Eyes, nose, tongue, ear, and the skin.
Skin.
Touch.
Jnanendriya and Karmendriya, Prabhu.
Good, good. Yeah, good. That's very good. What else? What else? What is the most important thing in terms of the gross
What is it made up of?
elements? What is a body made up of?
Earth, water, fire, ether,
And air.
and air. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, and which element is the most in our body of those?
Water.
Yeah, water. In most cases, it's water. In my case, it's air. Okay, that's good. That's good. What are the objects of the senses? What are we wanting to see? Those are 5 of those as well. The objects of the senses.
Seeing, feeling, hearing.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Objects of the senses of smell, taste,
Yes,
form, touch,
yes.
and sound.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Thank you, Indulekha Mataji. Very good. Very good.
I managed to connect. Anyway, thank you.
Good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. So you've got it. You've got it very nicely. So we've got the 5 great elements, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. Very easy to remember that. Then we have the objects. Form, what we want to look at, what we want to hear, smell nice things, taste nice things, and touch. These are the objects of the senses. And then we have the knowledge acquiring senses. That includes the eyes, you know, we're always looking, hearing, ears, nose, smelling, tongue, tasting, touch, skin touching. And then the working senses, as Pitamba very nicely said, hands, legs, voice, and the genitals. Actually, you didn't mention that, did we?
No.
No, so these are the working senses. Hands, legs, voice, and the genitals. Yeah, those are the senses. Yeah. Then we have the mind, right? Remember? So the mind is the head of the senses. It's regarded to be one of the senses, but it's actually the head of the senses. And the mind is supposed to, what is the mind supposed to do?
Function of the mind is to acquire information from the senses and pass it on to the buddhi, the intellect.
Yes. And what does Krishna say about the mind in terms of if it's our friend or not?
Our greatest enemy if you can't control the mind.
Right.
If it's totally absorbed in the objects, etc.
Exactly.
And the best of friends.
Got it. Well done. That's it. The mind's main job in a perfect world is to control these senses of ours. But in this world, it's really hard. And then what's above the mind? What's above the mind?
Intelligence, buddhi.
Yes. And what's even more subtler than the intelligence?
Atma.
Very close.
Before that.
Just before.
No?
False ego, sorry. Yes.
Ahankar. Ahankar is very, 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 very subtle. So mind is a little less subtle, intelligence is more subtle, and then false ego, because we can be taken over by false ego and not even realize it. So it's very, very subtle. So those those 3, mind, intelligence, ego, they constitute the subtle body. This body you can't see, but it exists within the gross body. So there's the subtle body, which when the gross body is finished and the soul leaves the gross body, the subtle body leaves with it. The subtle body carries the soul in its next journey. So the mind, intelligence, and ego stays with the soul throughout its existence in this material world.
With all your desires.
Yeah, with the stored desires and everything else. Very good, very good. And then the unmanifest, as we mentioned, the pradhan, which let's not go too much into that detail because that's pretty complicated thing. But we don't really need to understand that so much. So good, very good. You all have a little good knowledge on this. Then the second lesson Let's just go through. Oh, forget this.
Just do this.
Let's do it this way. Yeah. Second lesson is to cultivate humility. The reason being, it's something that is very important for us. It's one of the qualities that Krishna describes as knowledge. It's, in fact, I believe it's the first quality. So chapter 13, text number 12. Sorry, text number 8. The first quality Krishna describes as knowledge is humility. And then he describes another 10 or 15 different called pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity. But we just focused on one, humility. Now, would anybody care to tell me, how do we cultivate humility? Or what is humility even?
Humility is like when you do some actions, you're not expecting praise for it. You're just totally humble with the situation. I mean, to be honest, as a pure Karam yogi, he performs the actions for the sake of doing the actions.
Good, good. Anything else? Anybody else? That's good, Pitambar. Not expecting anything in return.
So it can be our pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, maybe cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, and renunciation of sense objects, and what else? Absence of false ego, maybe knowing the idol of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, maybe. And,
You mean humility? Are you saying what humility means?
is approximately to that?
Actually, again, you're not too clear, Mataji.
Oh,
Yeah.
my voice is not too clear. I'm sorry.
Or is it your voice? No, it's
No,
not. Your voice is fine. I think it's
okay.
the connection, maybe.
Oh, okay, the connection. Maybe,
But are you saying these are what is humility?
humility is like when we kill our pride, right?
Yeah. Good, good. Yes.
And we are steady in our belief, and we self-control ourselves, and like we can curb the mind and control the mind, maybe.
Yeah, that's good. That's all part of it. That's correct. Anybody else would care to?
Another little addition.
Yeah.
If you know something, you don't boast it.
Yeah.
You know, that's another very important thing, because you know, humility, that's also part of humility.
Good. Aruna?
Gratitude,
Sorry?
unconditional love.
Unconditional love. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Actually, that is the absolute source of the humility. Very good, Aruna. Basically recognizing our position as loving servants of Krishna. If we can understand that as our constitutional position, original position, from that humility automatically comes. And that is das nudas nudas, servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. It doesn't mean weakness. If you see the life of Hanuman, he was das nudas. He was always serving. He was always serving, and he was always serving the servants of Ram as well. But if you see his life, he never acted weak. He was always very strong in his service. So sometimes humility is mistaken for being weak. No. Humility is actually a sign of great strength. Somebody may say something to you, and you may choose not to react, not because you're weak, but you know, actually, I don't need to react to these insulting words or whatever they are. And in terms of Hanuman, his humility was incredible because, and even in his humility, he opposed Lord Ramachandra. Now that's a real contradiction in terms, isn't it? He opposed his own Lord for the sake of humility. How's that work? So I'll give you a pastime that took place. I don't remember the exact names and details, but in essence, what happened? A king was a subject of Ramachandra. He was an independent king. He was going to be punished by Ram, and he knew this. So he approached Hanuman, and he tricked Hanuman into making a vow that this independent king would be always protect. He would protect this independent king, no matter what. I can't remember exactly how he tricked him. So Hanuman said, yes, I will always protect you. And then it so happened that Ramachandra came to punish the king. Hanuman was there, and Hanuman had made a vow. So Hanuman protected this independent king from Ramachandra's arrows. How? That means he opposed Ram. How did he oppose him? He was chanting the name of Ram. So whatever Ramachandra was shooting at the independent king, Hanuman was able to counteract. And how was he counteracting it? By chanting the name of Ram. And in this way, actually Hanuman, then Ramachandra asked him, what are you doing, Hanuman? You are my servant. How can you protect this king? So then Hanuman said to Ramachandra, that I actually made a vow by mistake. I wasn't fully aware of the situation, but once I made the vow, I had to honor the vow. And I have not been unfaithful to you because I was honoring the vow by protecting this king, by chanting your name. And when Lord Ramachandra understood the full situation, he became so pleased with Hanuman. And this shows also that the name of Ram is more powerful. It's another example of the name of Ram being more powerful than the form of Ram, which is quite interesting. So humility is actually understanding that we are servants of the Lord, but in that service, we're willing to do anything for the Supreme Lord. So it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of great, great strength. Okay, so cultivating humility, very important, very, very important. And everything you've said, like not being proud, or is all relevant, all within this subject of humility. The next lesson is, oh yeah, very nice lesson. Because again, Krishna talks about, in the answer to Arjun, he's talking about the two knowers of this body. There's the Kshetra, which is the body, the field, Kshetra Gyan. Kshetra Gyan is the knower of that field, the knower of the body. So we start to a certain degree, we know this body to a certain degree, but not fully. For example, we're not completely aware of how, when we go to sleep, our food gets digested and then turned into waste and energy. We're not aware of how our hair grows, our nails grow, we cut them. But being aware of how they grow is actually something that we're not aware of, we don't know. So we have some knowledge of this body, but Krishna has full knowledge of this body, but not just this body. He has full knowledge of everybody. And that's one of the big differences between us, the Atma, and Krishna, the Paramatma. In this body, there are two Atmas living. One is us, and the second is the Paramatma. So it's important to know what the differences are between the two. Jivatma is tiny, 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair. We only know to a degree, our own body. The soul is the secondary proprietor for one body. So we are like the caretakers or the tenants in this body, if you like. We are fallible, which means we can make mistakes. We can be cheated. We can cheat like that. And our position is that we are subordinate, loving servants. And there's many, many jivatmas, innumerable, unlimited. And the jivatmas in this world are only less than 1/4 of the whole jivatmas in the whole of creation, including the spiritual world. So we are a minority. We're, if you like, in a hospital. Not everybody lives in the hospital in the town, because only those who are not well live in the hospital. So we are not well. We are living in this hospital of this material world. In terms of the super soul, he's known as Paramatma. He's infinite. He's huge. He's aware of everyone. He's a supreme proprietor, supreme lord, control of the senses, infallible. He can never fall. And he's eternally a loving master. And through the super soul, he is in the heart of every living entity. So whilst we're in this material world, this Paramatma is always with us. He's our protector, our guide, our witness. When we leave this world to go back to the spiritual world, Paramatma will not be with us, because we will be with the Supreme Lord directly. So another important thing to understand. So very important to understand. Some people have the misconception that the soul can become Paramatma. The Atma can become Paramatma. No. The soul is always different from the Paramatma. The soul can never become Paramatma. Paramatma is God, and he always is God. He's never become Atma in the first place. He's always Paramatma. Very, very important to understand this. Otherwise, we get into the misconception that I can become God, which is one of the last snares of this material world. I think most people on this forum will understand this already. So the final lesson that the final theme, final lesson, was how Krishna describes Prakriti and Purusha, and he describes how our consciousness will drive where we go next. By practicing bhakti, we want to elevate our consciousness. If we have the consciousness of a tree or an animal, then our next body will be given to us, which will be appropriate for the level of our consciousness. So if we are living in this world just like the animals, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, nothing else, the animals do the same, we do the same. In our next life, according to our karma, our desires, and our consciousness, we will get the appropriate body. So if we're simply living like animals, then that's the body material nature will give us. Krishna is the perfect tailor. He will design a body for us, which will suit us completely. So what we're trying to do with engaging in bhakti, devotional service to the Lord, is elevate this consciousness. So it goes from animal consciousness to human consciousness. At least let's become human. And then further to divine consciousness, spiritual consciousness. At least let's become conscious in the first place. And then we can become Krishna conscious. How do we become conscious? Actually, the only path is bhakti. Only path is bhakti. Bhakti will help us become fully conscious of ourselves. And as we practice more and more intense bhakti, then we will become more and more Krishna conscious. So this is another lesson that we take from this chapter. Let's improve our consciousness. No matter where we are, there's always room for improvement. If there was no room for improvement, we would not be in this world, we would be in the spiritual world. So we should have the humility to understand that I can always improve. And how can I improve? That is something that we have to work out with the help of our seniors. Are there any questions or comments from these 4 lessons of chapter 13?
I've got a little comment.
Yes, December.
You kind of blew me away when you told me when you said about the super soul doesn't follow you to the spiritual world. I never even thought of that. And I was just thinking to myself, whoa, I've learned something today. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. No, it's okay. Yeah, because super soul only is manifest in the material world. And this is the kindness of the Lord. We will insult the Lord. We will do activities which is just the most ridiculous activities, sinful activities. Yet he just remains with us no matter what. In the body of a pig, he'll be there with us. In the body of an atom, he'll be there with us. This is the kindness of the Lord. So compassionate. Anybody else? Thank you for sharing that, Pitamba. Okay, so we can move to the chapter 14. And let's have a look at the lessons that we took. We had, again, 4 themes. Chapter 14 is a glorious chapter because it talks about this material world and how to understand the 3 modes of material nature under which we are working. So who remembers what these 3 modes are? Who remembers?
Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun, Prabhuji.
Okay, Riansh. Riansh, you're way ahead of everybody, huh? And you're only 7. Extraordinary. Okay. What are they in English? Not you, Riansh, okay?
Mode of passion,
Not you. You already know the answer. I'd like somebody else to know, give me the answer, okay? You already got 100%, okay? So, devotees, what are the 3 modes of material nature?
Passion, goodness, and ignorance.
Yes, and can you just give us a little idea of the qualities of these modes?
In the mode of goodness, that is pure, that is when somebody is detached and they take birth on a higher planet, and that they develop the real knowledge. That is in the pure mode of goodness. And in the mode of passion, the desires and longing, they get attachment for the fruitive activities. They take birth among those in the fruitive activities grades, like Brahma. He is in the mode of passion because he creates, and people who want to build, right? And then in the mode of ignorance is the darkness, and they live in like madness, illusion. They take birth in animal kingdom.
Yes. In terms of Lord Brahma, he's actually in charge of the mode of passion.
Yes. He is in charge. Like Lord Shiva, he is in charge of the mode of ignorance, but he is not ignorant.
That's right. And of course, our Brahma, for example, is a pure devotee of the Lord. But he is in charge of the mode of passion. So he's in direct connection with the mode of passion. That's a fact. But yet he's the original Brahman. And Brahmans are regarded to be the mode of goodness. That's right. So yes, these are the 3 modes of material nature. And another way to, anybody else like to share how we can understand what these modes are?
they have a certain effect on our behavior, a certain effects on like what we eat, have certain effects on how we use our intelligence, and what type of charity we perform, what type of penance, and what type of austerity.
Yes, that's good. That's good, actually. Yes, I mean, we discussed how, and Indulekha Mataji very nicely explained, if the goodness is prominent, Sattvagun, then we would be a little bit detached. We'll be happy in one sense, happy, satisfied with what we're doing. We'll be making right decisions. For example, we would, in terms of charity, we would give the right, we would give to the right person at the right time for the right cause. One who's in the mode of passion, they have, as Mataji said, a lot of desires, and they're always busy trying to lord it over in terms of what that means is that they're trying to earn a lot of money, and then they will try to spend that money if they have time to spend it, of course. And in terms of charity, just to recognize how that would fit in, they would give charity, but they would want something back in return: name, fame, some favors, some political donations are made, and let my business get this planning permission, things like that. So this charity is in the mode of passion. And then person who is in the mode of ignorance, sleep, indolence, it's perhaps intoxicated a lot, leading to madness, illusion. And the way they would give charities, they would give to an unworthy person at the wrong time for an unworthy cause. And an example, to put it a little bit bluntly, if somebody's standing in front of a liquor shop, you give them something, an off license, give them something, and they're going to spend it on liquor, on alcohol. So that would be considered to be charity in the mode of ignorance, because it's going to take them further away from God, and that charity would actually cause for them to do bad karma, and hence you're getting a reaction as well, some of the reaction. So that's understanding what the modes are. Very nice to understand. How they work is again important to understand, because Krishna explains how they work. They compete for each other, against each other. Sometimes the mode of goodness is prominent early morning, especially if we rise early and we chanting and meditating. It's a wonderful time. That is when mode of goodness is prominent. And then as the day goes along, we got to go to work, we got to do so many different things. Mode of passion kicks in, takes over, the competition is on. Then we come back in the evening, have something to eat, go to sleep. Then the mode of ignorance becomes prominent. So this competition between the three modes takes place constantly taking place. And our Guru, our Guru Maharaj used to explain that if one is in the mode of ignorance, then try to rise at least to the mode of passion. If one is in the mode of passion, rise to the mode of goodness. Because from the mode of goodness, one can very easily convert that into the mode of pure goodness, Krishna consciousness. Because even the mode of goodness is, one can be attached to that happiness, isn't it? You're attached to that happiness that I am learned, I am satisfied. There's no sin that person really commits. So there's no illnesses. And he becomes comfortable in that zone of happiness. But unfortunately, that happiness will still bind him to this world, because that happiness is not connected with the Supreme Lord. When that happiness is connected with the Supreme Lord, then one is in God consciousness mood. So from the mode of goodness, it's very easy to take that step third lesson was to understand what mode we currently are. And we did a survey of about 30, 40 questions. I don't know if devotees remember that. Does anybody remember that?
Yes.
Who is that?
Suresh.
Suresh.
Oh, welcome. Hey, haven't seen you for a long time.
I know.
thank you.
People have been using me. Do this, do this. Been really busy.
Okay. We've been missing you and your wonderful feed. You always have something nice to share. So you'd like to share anything today?
Well, I'm thinking because it's very interesting. All these 5 tattvas, and they're very interestingly related to the physical
The senses and all that. Yes.
senses and all that. So that's the main thing, isn't it? That's how we are made up of
How do-
parts of 5 tattvas,
Yeah.
5 elements.
Yeah, 5 elements that makes up the body. And
Body.
then how there's the subtle body which is there. It's good to understand.
Subconscious mind.
Yeah, that's right, the subconscious mind. And then above,
Then it connects through the higher consciousness.
that's it, the intelligence, the ego. And then you've got the soul itself, which is
Yeah.
higher than all of them. And that's us.
Soul is the director of the company.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's a director. Direct to every action and every mode we are in.
Yeah. And in one,
Environment.
yeah, Krishna explains actually that the soul, its connection with the body is that it has this desire to enjoy, but at the moment the enjoyment is misdirected towards material world. So its desire is being fulfilled by getting,
I think you should live 200%. 100% inside, 100% outside.
Yes.
So you then you are complete. I don't know whether I'm talking sense or not, but this is how we are taught, that you have to live life 200%. That means your bhakti is inwards and your social is outside. But you have to
Interact.
not link each other by your moods and all that. But when you go inside and you're doing all the bhakti, it will automatically start rejecting the outside world. It comes automatically. Well, it takes time.
It takes time. The thing is, at the end of the day, what Arjun wanted to do, he wanted to leave the battlefield, right? He wanted to reject everything and go to the caves and then basically take up bhakti yoga. And Krishna said to him, no, you can't do that because your nature is not like that. Your nature is you're a warrior, you're a kshatriya. But you can use your nature, and if you focus your nature towards your kshatriya nature, but you do your service thinking of me for my pleasure, then actually you're combining both. You actually got your body, you got your senses, but you're using your body and your senses in order to serve the Supreme Lord. And that's what we want to do. We want to use everything we have in our possession because we are simply custodians of this body, this life. But we want to try to dovetail everything so it becomes bhakti so that we can try to please the Supreme Lord. This is the...
I think slowly elimination does come in, like 0.1% every day. When bhakti takes in the elimination of 0.1%.
Yeah, it's good. Slowly but surely. Absolutely agree with that. Are you there still? I think we lost you. Okay, and I think the next point is, the next lesson is that we need to try to perform bhakti, which will take us out of the 3 modes and back into the spiritual world. And Krishna, in this chapter, explains all of this, how to understand the modes, what are the modes, how to understand how they work, how to work out where we are, and also how to get out of these modes. So this is the beauty of this chapter. It's a phenomenal chapter. Now I want to just move into chapter 15 so that we try to complete at least these 3 chapters. I know it's a little bit of a rush, but we have gone through these lessons in some depth already. This is just a little bit of a revision. So chapter 15 is a wonderful chapter because it is Purushottam Yoga. And we are coming to Purushottam month, Mass, on Friday. And I hope devotees are a little bit focused on looking at this month in a way to intensify our bhakti. Because this is, whatever bhakti we do in this month becomes multiplied many, many, many times, thousands of times. So if we do 1 round, it's like doing 1,000 rounds. So if we do extra rounds, these are all going to add to our devotional credit. So 15th chapter, Krishna explains how we should, he's looking at, he's showing us the example of the banyan tree and the reflection of the banyan tree, that this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world, and how we should consider this place as a hotel. It's a temporary world. And it reminded me very much of that story, that television program of Mr. Bean, how he goes into a hotel room, starts decorating it, putting up nails and pictures, and converting the little room into an ensuite. But he's only there for 1 or 2 nights. So similarly, we are thinking this is our permanent world. We want to make a home here forever, but actually it's not going to work because we will be leaving this body sooner or later. So we should consider this place as a temporary place, a hotel room. And we need to be considering where is our real home. Krishna then also describes the spiritual world. He talks about how there is no requirement for the moon or the sun in that world. So we can also regard the spiritual world as our real home. Krishna is describing that real home in the 15th chapter. These are good lessons. So 1, this place is temporary. 2nd, we need to go to our real home in the spiritual world. 3rd lesson is Krishna is always our maintainer. Of course, our false ego will tell us, no, I am working, I am maintaining the family, I'm doing everything. But as we described, the soul simply desires. Everything else is pretty much done by material nature. The vast majority of our activities in this world are done by material nature, fulfilling our desire. The Lord sanctions that material nature to allow those desires to be fulfilled. So there are a few doers in this. We are a very small doer, simply desiring. So we should understand Krishna is our only maintainer. He cares for us a lot. That's why he allows us to think that we are maintaining ourselves, but actually it's Krishna who's doing everything. And the 4th lesson was that we can never become God. Krishna describes in this chapter because it's called Purushottam Yoga. So he describes the Purusha is the supreme personality of God, Uttam, the topmost. He describes his nature. He describes our nature. We can never become God. We're always his servant. In this world, servant has a negative connotation, that it's a low position, who doesn't enjoy too much. He's always used, like Suresh was saying, used by everybody. But actually, what was that? But actually, the position of the servant is extraordinarily elevated in the spiritual world. And that unalloyed servant who only cares for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, who is epitomized by Hladini Shakti, Shrimati Radharani, is the greatest servant, but actually, because she's so great, she also controls the Lord. So one who loves the Lord to such an extent where the Lord cannot repay that service given, he himself submits to that devotee. Of course, we don't want the Lord to submit to us. Why should we? Because he's our Lord. We love him in that capacity. But that's what happens. The servant's position is actually higher than the Lord's position in the spiritual world. So those are the lessons from these 3 chapters. And Madhusudan Babu, would like to share your experiences?
Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Babu.
Haribol. Again, yeah, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Hey.
Guru Maharaj ki jai, jai. Krishna Kanhaiya Lal ki jai. Because we're talking about all the lessons that Krishna is giving us through the Bhagavad Gita and through Arjuna actually as well. So again, emphasizing these important lessons. The 3, I'll go back to the lessons that you got 13, 13, 14, 15. And quite rightly, when you say the spiritual world is really our home, and this place is like a hotel room, we have rented out this body for this life, for so many other bodies, for so many other lives, whether it was a plant body or an animal body or whatever. But that, this is a room that we rent out, and depending on how much it costs us, whether you want a 5-star or 3-star or whatever, you can, according to your capacity and your size of your pocket, you're going to go for that room. But like Mr. Bean, you can make all adjustments, but temporarily. But that's an illusion. That's why we are in that illusion, thinking that, we are, as was said before, we are like the fish out of water, and we are faffing around, really, when the fish is out of the water. And, the natural position of the fish is to go back into the water, and it's comfortable again. That's his position, and he'll survive, but otherwise it's not going to survive for very long as well. So when we are out of the material world, and for whatever reason we are here, and all the modes of material nature are going to act, even when Lord Brahma has to engineer and create the whole material universe, and he knows that all the jivas are going to come from the spiritual world into this material world. But in the spiritual world, they're all conscious. They're all full of knowledge. They know who's Supreme Personality, or they know their constitution position as well. So the first thing that Brahma has to do is to create a mode of ignorance, so that everybody falls into that ignorant state, so they forget that they're spiritual entities, and then from the mode of ignorance takes over, then the false ego and false identity and the mind and all these subtle bodies are provided. It's the soul to dwell, through, and then the desires are fulfilled through these facilities that are provided, whether it's a subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego. But when we start to act in this material world, and when we have to maintain the body, and we have so many activities to do, but we can't be inactive at all. Although at times Krishna is so kind as well. Sometimes we are so fed up of this, and we get tired of this, and they get through into a whole philosophy of just nothingness. Then Krishna also gives that, he says, okay, you can go and enjoy nirvana or voidism or whatever you want for a while. You can have that as well. You can have a Brahma Jyoti, just emerge into the Brahma Jyoti and stay in that state of enlightened state for a while, but then that's also temporary. So everything within this material world is temporary anyway. And these lessons that, again, it teaches that, once we start to understand that the modes of ignorance and passion and goodness and all that, we are under those modes and we are carrying on. When we look at everyday people around, majority of them are just on a bodily platform anyway, just thinking about their body. Furthest they'll go is mind. What am I thinking today? What am I going to do? When the mind is taken over, then mind is controlling most of the time. And then the false ego as well. I'm the whatever of this teacher. I'm the president of the country, and I'm the boss of this company, and you have to do this for me and all that. So people are just generally under those modes, acting like that all the time. So it's only very rarely that we start to break out of that and go on to the spiritual path and try and regain our true identity, which is that of being a servant. The biggest illusion is also thinking that, I'm the doer, I'm the boss, and I'm everything. But even as a boss is serving, everybody is serving here. When you see a person taking a dog out for a walk, well, he's quite, you understand that, he's serving the dog, So we have to get in the, elevate our consciousness. That's another lesson there. Which mode we are currently. Sometimes goodness will predominate, passion will predominate, then ignorance. But we have to try and get out of that and be in pure goodness as much as possible. And that's by chanting and realizing that we are a servant of the God. So again, very important lessons, but good to keep reviewing these every now and then. Again, our senses, we have our senses, sense of taste, for example. Of course, nobody likes to taste horrible things. We like to taste good things. We like to see good things. That's why we like beautiful flowers and beautiful gardens and beautiful countryside. There's our sight, and nobody likes to, abuse their senses as well. But they get perverted, in one sense. We never get full satisfaction. And the senses are still to be used in Krishna's service. So we start hearing about Krishna. We start seeing the form of Krishna, the beautiful forms of, sometimes the deities are so adorned beautifully. You look at pictures, there's so much done with devotion. It's only with devotion that we start to dovetail our senses, whether it's sense of taste, sense of hearing. Again, you're all hearing me. Hopefully it's making sense. But again, all these, so many lessons here to learn, throughout the Bhagavad Gita. So anyway, thank you. That's all I can say. If anybody else wants to make any comments.
Thank you very much, Madhusambu. Any questions? Anything that's not clear? Perhaps these lessons may be a little bit too difficult to follow or too easy to follow.
I think sometimes when we're on autopilot, like for example going to work, sometimes we don't even realize. I used to commute to work for 2 hours, and how did I even get here? And it's just like as if I was on autopilot. And if we allow our life to be just run like that autopilot, before we know it, wow, I'm 70 years old now, 80 years old now. My life is just gone. What have I been doing, and all that. And then really, because we've not been very, very conscious of our activities, and I like what Prabhupada emphasizes that, Krishna conscious is a very scientific process. And it's got to be propagated. So on this platform of teaching and learning, especially from the Bhagavad Gita, and especially when you get to Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll expand a lot of these things even more. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Any questions, any comments? Okay, so why don't we go to the Nishinga Kavach? Yeah, very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Hope that was